Welcome back to the fourth episode of the Unbroken Athletic Podcast. We are breaking down the 5 pillars of fitness. In this episode, we are going to dive into rest and mobility and why it's important for any athlete, mom, dad, or anyone doing any kind of sports to have a set up program for your rest and recovery. So join me, Coach Jeremy, Coach Shanna, and Coach Fitz as we dive into rest and mobility. All right, guys, welcome back to the 4th edition of the Unbroken Athletic Podcast. I think it's official. Freaking pros now, right?
Yep.
We can go mainstream.
Let's do it.
Straight mainstream. Maybe Vince might have to start talking a little more. What do you think?
I'm the silent one in the group.
Silent but deadly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fart cloud.
Wow, here we go.
If you turn too far to the left, you don't even know he's there. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did you get here? All right, guys, so episode 4, the 4th pillar of fitness, I guess, is we're going to combine this one, right?
Yeah.
We're going to hit the mobility and the dreaded rest phase of athletic performance, okay, and what crucial part that plays. So what did we suggest? I don't know, you guys were talking about time. I was trying to set up camera angles. So
we said 20-minute
completely
AMRAP.
Stupid.
20
minutes.
On the clock.
3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so I'm going to let Vince start this one.
Oh, boy. I'm the silent one. All right, so we are talking about the mobility and rest segment, and I'm going to start off with a little quote from our friends over at Ramwad. It goes, flexibility without strength is a boat without an engine or an oar. Strength without flexibility is a powered boat in a frozen lake.
So real quick, I'm going to stop you real quick. Let the audience know, and we're not sponsored by Ramwad, but I know you follow it. We just followed it here at the gym. Can you explain kind of the principles of Ramwad based on what you've done as far as over the years?
Yeah, so Ramwad's basically I don't know, I normally just consider it yoga and Pilates kind of mixed together. It's about a 20 to 30 minute segment. They have incorporated shorter ones if you're trying to get it in and then out. But basically it's a bunch of poses that you get into, and it's supposed to you're not supposed to kind of like actively get in the pose. You're supposed to allow the pose to gradually loosen up your joints. And
passive hold.
Yeah, passive holds. And basically just get your body either primed for the day or, cool down for the day.
And what are your takes on Ramwad for everyday people, athletes, stuff like that? Since we're diving into the whole mobility circuit.
Yeah. Well, I guess I kind of take my mobility for granted. So I was a gymnast for so long that it was never an issue for me until
You're getting old.
I know. It was never an issue for me until I started getting older and I stopped working on it. So I used to do yoga at least 2 times a week before I had kids, and then when kids came I was like, well, it's just rest, so it's not really that important, and I kind of put it on the back burner. And I started noticing how, I guess, inefficient your body could be if you didn't have the flexibility. So like movements that were easy for me, getting in the bottom of a squat, having my chest up straight in the bottom of a squat, overhead squat, being in that right position. When you're not flexible, that's super hard. So just getting into the position, we're not even talking about like putting weight on you or moving with it or doing it in a workout, but actually just getting into that position was so hard. So when we started doing Ramwad, it was kind of like that yoga piece of it, but more specifically geared towards athletes and what we were doing specifically in the gym. So I think it was more efficient use of my time. And I could do it at home. I didn't have to go to a, studio. I still love yoga, and some point in my life it will make its way back into my schedule, but right now it's not going to happen. But I can put on round mod and do that in like 15, 20 minutes. So I think it's super important. I think it's really easy to do, but I think it's also because it's so easy to do, that it's also easy not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people look over this and they're like, oh, well, you know, stretching isn't really that. They think about it as recovery more than, like, yeah, there's important parts of it to recovery, but it's more about your performance, you know? It's not all just, hey, you're not going to be sore because you stretch. It's going to be, your workouts are going to be better because your body is, like, flexible and you're not fighting against your own, you know, inflexibility.
Right on.
How about you, Jeremy? What are your takes?
It's weird. It's really weird. No, yeah, it is it's one of those things that you do kind of like, you try to do by yourself. Just because,
Are you afraid of happy baby?
no, not really. Just other people's butts in my face, man.
Oh,
Frog pose.
Froggy butts. No, it's different. And, you know, the nice thing about Ramwad is the simplicity of it. And that's a lot of times like what, you know, we try to do as coaches. We try to make it as simple as possible. And that's one way to make it simple. I think it's like $15 a month to have access to Ramwad and all their features. We did it here at the gym. It just never took off. Just because, I mean, a lot of people take that stuff for granted. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if, you know, you kind of, you know, and not to diss the brand or anything because I love CrossFit, but, you know, CrossFit has this mentality of being this BA kind of program where it's like everyone's just sore all the time. It's cool. Look at my bloody hands, bro. And so when you're like, hey, guys, let's stretch, they're like, oh, dude, I didn't join that kind of gym, man. What is this, yoga studio? I just go flex at the beach, dude. And that's kind of like what, you know, we have to separate that mentality of, okay, we have to treat the whole body. We have to treat the system as a whole. And that's, you know, that's a good thing that this is going to be kind of a segue into realistically the whole purpose of mobility is rest. And while you can do that mobility, rather than waiting to the last possible moment, and we all do it, mm-hmm. you know, we wait to that last minute of going, oh crap, I screwed up. Mm-hmm. You know, my arm's locked up, my shoulder's locked up, my neck's locked up, my back's locked up. Whatever that is, it's because of improper movement patterns, one, and two, not staying actively ahead of that. I mean, it's like, you know, all of us take supplementation seriously. All of us take our diet and nutrition seriously. And that's preventative health. You know, we're trying to prevent something down the line. Whereas, you know, it's the same holds true with mobility and rest. It's more preventative than anything, rather than, you know, trying to hit it on the back end and like, oh, well, now that it's screwed up, I might as well try to look into doing something to free up that joint, when it's like, okay, well, you've already created this whole, you know, slew of problems that it might not just be your shoulder. It's probably your back. It's probably your, you know, torso. It's probably your hip flexor. It's probably your glutes and hamstrings. And it started all the way down probably to a locked up calf muscle, you know, and who knows? And I mean, if you follow any of the stuff from Kelly Stark, who runs Mobility WOD, I mean, he's often preached about how everything is usually upstream, downstream of the problem. Mm-hmm. And what that means is just, you know, it probably started way upstream, and what happens is our body goes into shutdown. If we're not properly staying on top of our mobility and our stretches and stuff like that, proper cool down, proper warm up, we'll start to create this upstream, downstream thing, and our body will start saying, okay, well, you know, my forearm keeps cramping up, and so our bodies will, in an effort to protect that muscle, will start utilizing larger muscle groups to take over the normal function of that muscle, whether it's the forearm, whether it's the shoulder, whether it's the calf, whether it's the quad, hamstring, whatever, into these larger muscle groups, so they share the fatigue. And the problem with that is, over time of non-mobility or non-mobilizing that kind of muscle group, we start to take on larger damage, larger compensations, which leads to larger injuries. I mean, I've been out for 5 days. I mean, just a perfect example is, you know, granted, it was probably the 50 cal bike and 245 deadlifts for 21, but who knows? But yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, Aerodyne bike, for example, I mean, hamstring quad, that's a pretty big, brutal combo.
Yeah.
And then trying to, brace a 21 deadlift load at 245 for high volume or high speed, probably led to a lockup in the hamstring, which then led up to a lockup in the back without proper over time. It wasn't just one workout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the times people blow out their back picking up a fork or a pencil or whatever, and it's not necessarily a heavy load. It's just overextended use of a certain muscle group because it's like, listen, dude, I'm done.
Right.
That reminds me of the
Locking it up, bro.
the compound effect, the slight edge. Like, you don't think about when you're eating a cheeseburger and fries, like, this meal right here is going to kill me. Nobody thinks that, right? But over a lifetime, if that's all you ate, then it would possibly lead to your death. But we don't stop doing it because you don't die the second you get done eating that meal, right? And it's the same thing with mobility. Like, your back is not going to break because you didn't do mobility one time yesterday, and now you're going to come in and do this workout. But over an extended period of time, if you're not taking care of it and you're not doing it, then could possibly, it's not like it's going to happen, but it might. I'm telling you, when my knee got hurt last year, and it was random, it was like, just got hurt for no reason. I got ran over by a lawnmower when I was 2, and so I got a lot of issues going on with my knees and my hips and stuff. But
So when you stay home from the gym, just remember,
I got 9 toes.
Shanna has
There
an
you go.
excuse and doesn't use it.
So, but that's probably what
Where
caused
were you at
it.
this morning, Vince?
That's probably what caused it. But what I want to say is that, like, you don't ever.
Sorry.
I know I lost my train of thought. You don't ever have those regrets and all those thoughts of all the things you should have been doing until the minute that you can't bend your knee, or you can't move your back, or you can't, whatever it is with mobility, you can't lift your arm. Like, you don't have, like, all of a sudden in that instant, you're like, oh my gosh, I should have been stretching. I should have been taking rest days. I shouldn't have done that hard. I should have listened to my body. Like, the moment that happens in all the regret, but then by that time it's already too late. So what we're trying to say is it's like this, it's like the silent killer.
That's a weird theme. It keeps on popping up.
I know, I said it because it's in my head. But it's like this thing that you have to stay on top of, but there's no, like, immediate reward, and it's really hard to stay motivated when there's not. But it's like that. If you're looking for a good book to read on that, it's called The Slight Edge, or The Compound Effect. They're both very similar, but it's about that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that comes to, like, body composition and stuff like that.
That's what we're going to talk about next
week.
week.
That's, like, next week. So make sure you tune in next week when we start talking about the body composition. And, a lot of times people come in and they're like, no, I've been overweight for 30 years. Why hasn't this worked? It's been 3 days.
Exactly.
Because it's going to take
some time.
Just about the same amount of time it took you to get there. That's how long it's going to take you to get it.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. So let's talk about your guys' favorite subject.
Oh, here we go.
But first, what we're going to do is we're going to take a slight break. And so we're just going to, if you guys are local in the Olmsted Falls area, and you're not a member of Unbroken Athletic, go ahead and check out our video that we're going to roll here for you. All right, guys, we're back. So we're bringing up now the subject of rest.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I just came off of a 5-day rest day, not because I wanted to, but because I was forced to because of my lack of mobility. Yes, your coaches do suffer from these things. So,
we may not show it.
It showed for 5 days.
Some may show it, but
for 5 days it showed. No, but it's a good thing. It's really hard to camp when your back's pretty locked up, especially when you got to move a camper. They're actually a lot harder than it seems. Like, when we went to go buy a camper and a guy was trying to get rid of it, he's like, oh yeah, I was in a car accident, so my back's all screwed up, so I can't set these things up. And I was like,
How hard
can it be? And then I set it up for the
drive it.
first time, and I was like, it was like a 30-minute Metcon.
Yeah, you gotta be like in shape.
Like, you got to unhook it from the truck, and then you got to level it, then you got to set everything up, then you got to drag
do
everything
those
out, and you got to
tightening the
freaking,
tire things.
you got
What's
to
that
check the
called?
lug nuts.
That's what. Yeah.
Torque wrench, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's my job.
way to get off topic, Vince.
Clearly.
All right, so
We're talking
rest.
about rest.
Rest period. And so what are your thoughts on rest, and why is it important? And we'll start with you, Vince. And
Oh boy. All right, so rest. It took me quite some time to actually understand that rest is very, very important. You could go down two ways. You could go sleep as your rest, or you could just claim rest as in like not going to the gym, not thinking about the gym, kind of just relaxing, taking a day to just relax. For me, it's hard because I'm a go person, so I just want, I have a goal in mind and I just want to go. I want to get there. I want to achieve it, and I want to get there as fast as possible. And it's taken me a while to, one, realize rest is important in that process, and two, to trust that process and to really enjoy that process, the journey and all that. So for me, rest is very important. Right now, within this week, I've probably taken 3 full rest days, and it's been weird at times, but at the same time it also feels good because not that I'm not doing anything. I have other obligations I'm doing, but I haven't worked out. And if this was me a year ago, I would have been freaking out. I would have probably been bawling my eyes out because I was like, I need to be doing this. I'm losing gains and all that.
That's a real fear.
don't worry, we already had a funeral for your game.
Thank you.
It'll be in the obituary this weekend. You open the paper. Here lies Vince's gains.
But it's I'm starting to realize it's a very, very necessary tool within an athlete, within an athlete's belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm the same way. So I am a type A personality.
I think we all are.
Probably everybody that likes CrossFit is probably more like that. I don't like watching TV. I don't like sitting around. I don't like
I literally have to force her to
sitting
rest.
still. I really don't.
I think
like
sometimes
to be
she'll be
moving.
on her phone and I just want to grab it and go, no more phone.
I like
Oops.
So I think
Whoops.
for me one of the biggest things was, and I'm still working on it, I am very far from mastering this skill, but redefining what rest looks like.
Yeah.
So going on a bike ride with my kids where it's still moving. I'm not working out. I'm not going for time. I'm really not even running while
Active
they're writing
rest.
a book or riding a bike. I'm walking next to them, then jogging a little bit, and then walking. So it's active rest, but it's still resting. It's away from the gym. It's something that I enjoy doing. It could be hiking. That's another one where I'm still being active, but I'm away from my phone. I'm away from my computer. I'm away from my businesses. I'm away from the gym. But we're walking in nature, and I love. And that for me has been super helpful, and it's making me way more productive because I am resting. It's just not sitting on. I always thought rest meant sit on the couch and do nothing. That's totally not what it means.
Not all the time. I believe there's 2 steps. There's 2 stations, especially if you're training as an elite level athlete. I think I heard Josh Bridges once say on one of his videos that he doesn't really have a planned rest day. Mm-hmm. He just goes until he gets to that point where he's like, yeah, I can't do that anymore, and then he'll take a total 24 hour off. Mm-hmm. And that's complete rest. That's not even active rest. And so I think that you kind of have to get away from the idea that rest is sleep, just sleep. And you have to look at it as a recovery. And maybe terming or keywording the whole idea, mobility, nutrition, pretty much your lifestyle, and all the things that we've kind of talked about, opposed to as not strength, but everything else that surrounds kind of like any kind of athletic performance is active recovery. And so it's either active recovery or just straight recovery, and not just rest in particular, but like recovery. So like your active rest day should include some type of mobility work, rolling out your quads, trying to release some of that lactic acid. I mean, we did lactic flush days and when the open rolled around, that was just, active slow movement post open work, because you're pushing those open workouts so freaking hard that you normally do that you have. I mean, look at the one with the freaking dumbbell front squat burpee and the power clean or the cleans.
Yeah.
I mean, that was terror. I mean, the quads were destroyed after that workout.
Right.
So that having that cool down flush day was a part of the recovery process. And so understanding that there's active recovery, which is like, running, swimming, biking, something long, low intensity, long distance, something where you're at that 75% mark, which is that active recovery, which is super important, especially for lactic flushing of the muscles. And then you have total recovery, which is just straight up mobility. You might go on a walk, but you're not really actively doing something that's raising the heart rate to the point of, athletic exhaustion. Okay. And so, and then understanding that rest, yes, it is a very big part of that recovery process, because there's a difference between resting and sleeping. You can rest where you actually get a whole kind of full night's 8 hours sleep, and then sleeping where it's just kind of like you close your eyes and you didn't really sleep very well and you were out drinking and whatever, you're not actively recovering. And so understanding that difference between active recovery and the quality of that recovery is going to ultimately change kind of how you perform in the gym, outside of the gym, with your kids, in your lifestyle and stuff like that. I believe is kind of crucial for anything that you do. If you're doing CrossFit, if you're doing yoga, if you're doing running, whatever that is, you have to have a specific plan in place for that recovery process.
Right, like it's not just going to happen. You have to have a plan. I love that.
Yeah. And unless you do it, then it's not going to happen.
Right.
And it has to be simple.
Yeah.
Simplicity is the key to execution.
That's right.
That's right.
Boom.
Boom. Stole that from Tony Robbins. And we are going to end on that. So, guys, if you're in Olmsted Falls, come check us out. Send us an email through info@Unbroken Athletic. Subscribe, share. We get great if you could give us some reviews on whatever the hell it is. iTunes, Stitcher, whatever podcast place you listen to, YouTube. Share our crazy stuff. Share our stuff. We like shares, and we will check you guys later.